The year is 1479 BCE. A pharaoh's scribe stands before rows of weathered soldiers, each man's name carved into clay tablets alongside precise quantities of grain, beer, and linen. The empire's survival depends not on the strength of bronze swords or the height of stone walls, but on something far more revolutionary. A system so elegant that modern armies still use its basic principles today. The ancient Egyptians didn't just build pyramids. They built the first military-industrial complex. This is another video where money, power, and history collide, and nothing is ever as simple as it looks. Most people think ancient warfare was simple. Pharaoh points at an enemy. Soldiers march. Battle happens. Winners take everything. The textbooks paint a picture of loyal warriors fighting for god-kings, motivated by divine duty and patriotic fervor. Brave men wielding spears and shields, united under the banner of Horus, charging into battle for the glory of Egypt. That's the story we tell ourselves about ancient heroism. The reality was far more calculating. By the time of the New Kingdom, Egypt controlled territory from Nubia to the Euphrates. Managing this empire required armies of unprecedented size. Ramesses II deployed forces exceeding 20,000 men during his campaigns. These weren't farmer soldiers who showed up for a season and went home. They were professional warriors who expected to eat every day. Feeding 20,000 men creates a logistical nightmare that would challenge modern militaries. Ancient Egyptian quartermasters solved it with ruthless efficiency. The system worked like this. Every soldier received a standardized ration package. 10 loaves of bread daily, 2 jugs of beer, 1 portion of meat every 3 days, clean linen garments monthly. The quantities never varied. The delivery was absolute. But payment wasn't random charity from a benevolent pharaoh. It was a precise contract. Scribes maintained detailed records of every transaction. Papyrus documents from Deir el-Medina show soldiers' names, ration allocations, and service obligations recorded with accounting precision that would impress Wall Street. Miss a day of service, lose a day of rations. Desert your post, forfeit everything. The genius wasn't just organization. It was control. Ancient Egyptian military payroll created something unprecedented: economic dependence. Soldiers who relied on state rations couldn't easily return to civilian life. They became institutionally trapped. Professional warriors with no profession except war. This wasn't accidental. Egyptian administrators understood that hungry men make unreliable fighters, but men who depend on you for survival make perfect instruments of imperial expansion. The system transformed warfare from seasonal raiding into permanent occupation. Egyptian garrisons could maintain control over distant territories not through constant fighting, but through economic integration. Local populations provided labor and resources. Egyptian soldiers provided security and consumed local production. Everyone depended on the central administration. Commander Amenemhet's tomb inscriptions boast of provisioning the army according to the divine order of Pharaoh. Divine order, not military necessity or strategic planning. The economic system had become religious doctrine. Priests blessed the ration distributions. Temples stored the surplus grain. Military logistics merged with sacred ritual until supporting the army became an act of worship. The system worked beautifully until it didn't. During the reign of Ramesses III, the empire faced a perfect storm. Crop failures reduced the grain supply. Foreign invasions drained the treasury. Trade disruptions cut access to imported goods. The standardized ration system that had guaranteed stability for centuries suddenly couldn't deliver. In 1159 BCE, Egyptian soldiers staged history's first recorded military strike. The papyrus records capture their desperation. We have come here because of hunger and thirst. We have no clothes, no oil, no fish, no vegetables. Professional warriors reduced to begging for basic necessities from the system that had created their dependence. The strike lasted months. Soldiers abandoned their posts. Garrisons collapsed. Foreign enemies seized Egyptian territory, while the empire's military machine ground to a halt over unpaid rations. Pharaoh eventually restored the payments, but the damage was permanent. Egypt's enemies had learned that the empire's greatest strength was also its greatest weakness. Disrupt the supply chain, collapse the army. The late period saw repeated invasions by forces that understood this lesson. Assyrians, Persians, and Greeks conquered Egypt not through superior tactics, but by targeting the logistical networks that fed Egyptian forces. The names have changed. The behavior hasn't. Modern military contractors operate under the same basic principle the Egyptians perfected. create economic dependence, ensure political loyalty. American soldiers in Iraq received standardized meal packages, regulated equipment allocations, and systematic pay structures that mirror ancient Egyptian ration systems. Defense contractors like Halliburton and KBR built fortunes by controlling military logistics, just as Egyptian temple administrators once controlled grain distribution. The Pentagon spends more on military catering than most countries spend on their entire defense budgets. Private military companies recruit former soldiers who struggle with civilian employment. Economic necessity drives military service, just as it did along the Nile. The volunteers aren't volunteers. They're economic conscripts. Silicon Valley has learned the same lesson. Tech companies provide free meals, transportation, healthcare, and housing assistance to create employee dependence. Workers become trapped in corporate ecosystems that control every aspect of their daily lives. Leave the company, lose everything. The ancient Egyptians didn't invent economic control. They just perfected it. Every empire since has copied their methods. Rome paid legions with salt and land grants. Medieval kings compensated knights with feudal privileges. Modern corporations offer stock options and benefit packages. The principle remains constant. Those who control survival control behavior. The scribes who invented military payroll believed they were building eternal systems. Their records speak of divine order and permanent prosperity. They couldn't imagine that their greatest innovation would become their civilization's fatal vulnerability. History doesn't repeat. It just recycles its illusions.